12. 2025 marks the fourth year and day 308 since the full-scale invasion began. A warm welcome, I greet you. For the Daily Situation Report, in today's report, we see a devastating attack on an elite unit of the Russian armed forces. A brief insight into the ongoing talks in the United States between Trump and Zelenskyy, and why standing still with drones is no longer a solution, among other topics. Why do Russian soldiers often freeze like a deer in the headlights when a drone approaches them? You might think, hey, just run away, try to dodge it, throw something at the drone. Anything is better than just standing still. The short answer is because they realized far too late what these drones actually are and what they are capable of today. Even before the war began, first-person view drones were considered toys by much of the Russian leadership. Many officers mocked even commercial drones like Mavics, and first-person view systems were ridiculed even more. Concepts for using these platforms with explosive charges as precision-guided weapons did exist in theory, but they were dismissed as unrealistic or irrelevant. This misjudgment led to Russia completely handing the initiative over to the enemy. I'm referring to the early months of the war in 2022. Ukraine realized early that price, demand, and impact intersect here. As long as there was no market, manufacturers didn't develop high-resolution cameras, better transmission frequencies, or robust motors for drones used on a large scale. That changed suddenly. High profit margins became possible, and Chinese producers rapidly improved range, image quality, and reliability. Technical evolution was driven by military demand. In short, this freezing that we often see on the Russian side is not just a reflex, out of fear or because they don't know what else to do, but rather the result of false assumptions from an early phase of the war. Many Russian soldiers have learned exactly this behavior. They were taught back then that drones are primarily reconnaissance tools. The standard reaction was to stay still, seek cover, and reduce your silhouette. If you stay still, you can't be seen. This mindset dates back to when drones were uncommon, ammunition limited, and drone attacks were rare exceptions. Anyone who lay still had a good chance of not being noticed, especially with the low-resolution images and the relatively inexperienced drone pilots. In today's reality, it almost always leads to the same result. Anyone who remains passive against drones makes the problem worse and pays for it with their life. As a drone operator today, first, another drone has already indicated that there are other soldiers there, which means that if the drone is present, you've already been spotted long before. And second, drone pilots now see everything in high definition or similar image formats and not like before in a pretty pixelated version, if you can call it that. On the night of the 26th, on December 26th, Ukrainian drone forces conducted a reconnaissance mission and attacked Russian elite units in the Bryansk area, Donetsk Oblast. Operational reports confirmed that the 14th Russian Special Brigade of the Main Intelligence Directorate was hit. So this is an elite unit of the Russian Military Intelligence Service, responsible for reconnaissance, sabotage, and special operations. The attack targeted a command post as well as the unit's accommodation areas and resulted in heavy losses. According to the Ukrainians and the footage, at least 51 soldiers were killed and another 74 were wounded. The incident once again underscores that even high-ranking units considered particularly well protected in the rear area are no longer safe from drone operations. It again demonstrates the effectiveness of Ukrainian coordination and reconnaissance in evaluation and rapid response. Let's examine Pokrovsk. The Russians now fully control this area east of Murad and to the north. Thus, the semicircle is closing more and more here. Fighting is still ongoing inside, especially by elite units such as the 38th Marine Infantry Brigade or the 25th. Paratrooper Brigade, which is still holding Murad here, or what's left of Murad. It's a similar situation near Pokrovsk, so this area here is still partially under Ukrainian control. There is still fighting going on here on both sides. You can consider the remaining routes fully under Russian control. Fighting has resumed near Rudinsky as Russians attempt to retake the town. At the same time, they are also trying to get here via Pokrovsk towards Bryshin. However, all of this has been without success. The only successes that could be reported here are in this area, marked in dark red. Today I made a video for you that is incredibly interesting. Be sure to watch this video again later. It's about a Chinese disguised striking weapon that appears to be completely harmless, but in reality it's not. As always, I'll link it at the end of the video in the credits. You know that Trump is meeting with Zelenskyy today, and as so often, he did exactly what he shouldn't have done just before that. He announced he had again spoken with Putin by phone beforehand. In his post, Trump calls the conversation with the Russian president good and very productive. And it took place before the meeting with Zelenskyy, which is supposed to take place in the presence of the press. So once again, Trump let Papa Putin give him some instructions or threats. The issue isn't the contact itself, but the message it conveys. Trump once again presents himself as someone who manages both sides, but again he speaks first with the aggressor and only then meets with the one who was attacked. This visibly shifts the balance of power toward Moscow before the talks. Additionally, the Kremlin confirmed that Putin and Trump exchanged New Year's greetings and basically only agreed to set up 2 working groups for a possible Ukraine peace deal, one on security issues and one on economic topics. So for us, that means one for Russia's security interests, not Ukraine's, and one for Russia's perspective. Did the call come from Trump? Personally, I can't imagine that. Regardless of whether anything actually comes of it, once again we see the pattern. Trump gives Putin the stage, legitimacy, and time, even before anyone has even spoken with Ukraine. For Zelenskyy, this is another bad sign, as negotiations where Moscow is already seen as an equal pace setter are not neutral, but structurally biased. There's also this interesting scene here. When asked whether the recent massive Russian attacks on Ukraine clearly show that Putin has no serious interest in peace, Trump responded evasively and downplayed the situation. He said that Putin was, quote, very serious about wanting peace, and he equated the Russian attacks directly with Ukrainian counterattacks. According to Trump, this assessment was not meant negatively. In his words, you probably have to do that. You have to wage war. Notably, his word choice about the Russian refinery explosion stands out. Trump said in essence that these did not come from the Congo, nor from the United States of America, but possibly from Ukraine. At the same time, he emphasized that he had not asked and would not do so. He then reduced the situation to a purely technical description. Both sides are at war. Trump again ignores a key difference between the attacker and the defender. Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities, infrastructure, and civilians are rhetorically equated with Ukrainian strikes against military targets in the Russian hinterland. This attitude fits easily into the familiar Muslim narrative. Responsibility shifts, causes blur, and Putin's role as aggressor is downplayed. For Ukraine, this again means they must assert themselves both militarily and politically in negotiations, despite a very uneven starting position. But enough about the talks. Take a look at the new video about the Chinese trade cruiser. And with that, as always, I thank you for listening. A special thanks goes to Colonel Drenica, Robert Ziller, and Dietrich. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you at the next report.